Dykema, your response to Jim's question.
Sure. I have not worked at the State House, so I cannot speak to any of the things that Dan has talked about. And, you know, what I will promise, if elected, is that I will bring very much an independent Democrat mindset to the State House. I think what's most important and what we need to remember, anyone who works in the State House or in government for that matter, is that at the end of the day, what we need to keep in mind are those people on fixed incomes that are having a hard time heating their homes, are the fact that when we talk about property taxes, that's a direct result of money not being available at the state level because of, you know, spending at that level. We need to remember that every dollar that we spend needs to be spent wisely, and we need to be accountable for it. And I couldn't agree more with Dan in that respect. And I think I will promise to always remember that at the end of the day, the buck stops here in our communities. And that's the voice that I'll represent at the State House. While I think I can be more effective because I belong to the majority party and can work with those individuals, by no means at any time will I lose sight of the fact that my constituents are here in our communities, and they're the ones that I have to fight for and give a voice to.
Could I respond to that very quickly?
Quickly.
I have absolutely no doubt, and I've gotten to know Carolyn a little bit during this process, and she strikes me as an earnest, straightforward, hardworking person. I have been in the State House, and I've seen what happens to members of the majority party who want to stand up and be an independent voice. They get stomped down fairly quickly. And frankly, this is the pitch I'm making to voters, Democrats, Independents, Republicans. It doesn't matter. My pitch is very nonpartisan. I think when you have the degree of imbalance that we have in this state, where you have in the House of Representatives 141 out of 160 members in the same party, that leads to unhealthy governance. And I don't care if that supermajority is Republican or Democrat. That leads to unhealthy governance. And that's what we've got right now. And that's why we're in the situation we are in right now.
Just one comment.
Sure. Yeah.
I have never been stomped down, and I don't intend to be at the State House.
And I'm not sure.
At least we're not having any trouble coming up with differences in the candidates.
There we
Mr.
go.
Maroney, you're on.
I'm not sure people care that much more about labels anymore, but let's leave that aside. Let's talk about spending money. Carolyn, I want you to take this first. One of you will perhaps have the opportunity to vote on what we call economic incentives for different industries. I'm thinking of the movie tax credits, which I won't go into here, but I've done some work on, and I think they are a scam for the voter. We are giving away much too much. That's a personal opinion. The governor is very involved in the life science biotech. But here's the general philosophical question I'd like you both to consider. What role does government have in nurturing, cultivating, developing business? Should we be spending taxpayer dollars to grow business in any sector, especially in these hard economic times?
I see government as having a role in identifying opportunity. What I see, one of the things I talked about earlier was doing a fiscal impact statement for projects just such that you're talking about. I think that we need to, before we even consider them, we need to make sure that at the end of the day the payoff is worth it. I think that's a interesting question. I guess my perspective on the biotech bill is that we're in tough times and we need the economic development. We're well positioned to take it, but we're also in head-to-head competition with California, who is very aggressive at attracting these companies, and they've actually done a great job, and they've seen a lot of benefits from that. I think the hard position that we're in is how do we compete with states like California to get these businesses that will create long-term gains and long-term economic potential for our area. So in certain instances, in certain thoughtful instances, well-constructed programs, not on a broad scale, but I think are appropriate.
The government ought to have no part in picking market winners. It's not good at it. It's a big, cumbersome bureaucracy. Let the market pick market winners. We ought to reduce taxes on business, broad-based. That's how you attract business. Again, I know I've been involved in these efforts. Companies who are considering different states look at not just what are you going to hand me today, but what is the business climate in the state? Is there any certainty as to tax rates? how they're going to be tomorrow. If you're handing me an incentive today, but there's rumbling all the time about we need new sources of revenue, and then that manifests itself in a broad-based tax hike of close to $1 billion, you know what? People are looking at Massachusetts and saying it's unstable and it's too expensive, we're not going to go there, and I don't care if you're going to hand my specific sector a little bit of money. Now, if you look at the states where companies are going, they're going to states that have a stable tax system, where they can look and say not only today but tomorrow, what are we likely to see there? The government shouldn't be trying to pick market winners. That's not how it works in this country.
Okay, Michelle.
Does she have a?
I did
I'm sorry,
just have one follow-up comment to that. I think where businesses go is where the talent pool is, quite frankly. And I think one of our bigger challenges here in the state is to find a way to retain the young, educated workforce that has always been our strength, that keeps the innovation economy here in Massachusetts. I think that's the bigger challenge, quite frankly. How do we create the environment, the lifestyle, and the affordable housing that will allow them to have here what they can have in states like North Carolina?
Couldn't agree more, and taxes are a big part of cost of living.
Go ahead.
Okay, talking about what businesses need when they're going to locate in a state, something we haven't touched on is infrastructure. And that's really a stumbling block in many areas. And what can you do at the state level to help towns with their water, sewer, and infrastructure needs?
One of the messages that I'd like to bring to Beacon Hill, and I had mentioned this in a previous article, I believe, in the paper, was that I believe that here in Metro West, we have what businesses are looking for. I was recently at a 495 partnership conference where they talked about all of the reasons why companies want to come here, including the very talented workforce that we have. I think what the message that we need to take to Beacon Hill, and I think if we look at organizations like the Metro West Legislative Caucus and the potential there, is to make Boston understand that Metro West is quick becoming the center of economic potential here in the state of Massachusetts, and investments in our area and our infrastructure is not only going to benefit us, but will also benefit the state as a whole. And I think having many voices coming to the State House with that message and giving us the clout that comes with that is a message that I will take to the State House.
And that's absolutely right. I was at the same conference, and the information about our workforce, about our resources in Metro West, it's stunning. We really are an economic driver for the state. But you know, I'm gonna be a broken record. But when you talk about infrastructure, you're talking about money. And I believe I said at the outset, one of the priorities of state government ought to be its infrastructure and the other things I mentioned. But when it's a good circle back to the previous question. Rather than saying we're going to have a big press conference and give a big, huge $1 billion check to one industry, that's $1 billion, and $1 billion could probably be invested better to attract business, and as for instance, infrastructure investments.